So it seems like the things that you talk about are ongoing, well-known systemic issues that would have wide-reaching, you know, wide-reaching ramifications when solved or tackled or addressed in some way, shape, or form. So do you find that you could partner with a governmental organization that would be the funding arm for a script like this, or a nonprofit organization that's specifically geared towards domestic violence that's a mid to large scale, that could just like move forward with something like this? Because it seems like something like this, well done, could be industry standard in, for instance, policing. It could be industry standard in psychology. It could be industry standard in women's homes, schools. You know, I mean, it could end up, especially in those training programs, in those psychology training programs, in those social worker training programs, like, you know, it could like really,
religious centers,
yeah,
dietitians, so many hotels. I used to work in the hotel industry, and one of the things that some of the hotels do is they will take on domestic violence, people, victims of domestic violence, when the shelters are full.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I hope I didn't say too much, but the bottom line is, not all the staff understand. I mean, you get a very, very quick snapshot of what domestic violence is when you're training. Like, you know, the major hotels give you a very, very quick snapshot of it. You know, what to look for in the hotel and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, I worked in a hotel where one time, you know, the housekeepers came down screaming because the sheets were full of blood. So there's a lot of different things that happen in the hotel industry that, yes, if people aren't aware of what to look for, or certain response, or certain cues, you know, and there are certain ways that you can do little codes, you tell your guests when somebody's coming in, if you put up a sign like this, then we know that you need help or something. But anyway, the point that you're getting to, yes, this could be a universal, this needs to be a universal message. Because the thing is, guess what? If you have one understanding of domestic violence, and you have one understanding of domestic violence, and you have one understanding of domestic violence, it's kind of like politics. It's like people are coming at it with different views, different emotions, etc., and people are not on the same page. So who misses out? The victims, right? Because if I have one way of communicating with you, but you're not available, so I have to go to you. Do you see where the miss is? So yes, whatever the message is, it has to be universal so that people are on the same page. So yes, would I like to partner with a nonprofit or a government entity? Yes. I mean, you know, even if it were in the state of North Carolina where they had the same exact message, you know, you have to start somewhere, or the city of Durham, or wherever it may be. But yes, there has to be a universal message, because what happens is victims of domestic violence, I mean, they always speak up. If they left 7 times, they spoke up 7 times, right? If the average victim leaves 7 times and they don't leave for good until the 8th time, right? And like I said, keep in mind, some may be 10, some may be more. They're speaking up. They're leaving. But they're not getting the support. They're not getting the understanding. They're not getting the next steps that they need to stay. So imagine this. The security and the safety are greater from an abuser than the community that surrounds them.
Because?
Could be multiple things. It could be, so now an abuser, typically what an abuser does, and you've seen this in the news beforehand. So what an abuser typically does is, they're not gonna threaten, I mean, they may threaten you, but what they'll typically do is threaten whatever you love. So I'm not going to threaten you and say I'm gonna get you, but what I'll do is I'll take your cat and I'll hold it outside the window. You piss me off enough, I'll drop it.
Wow.
I'm not gonna harm you, but I'm gonna take our child and I'm gonna throw it up against the wall. I'm not gonna threaten you. What I'll do is I'll have a gun in the house and tell you that I'm gonna shoot your parents.
And these are different scenarios that your work either addresses or that you've been privy to.
So remember, I'm a domestic violence awareness speaker. So, and I work with the suicide hotline. I work with, police. I work with so many different people. So yes, I've been doing this since like 2015. So I've heard a lot of stories. Plus I was a deaconess at my church in New Jersey. since 1994. So since 1994, when I was working with domestic violence situations, I mean, one girl called me. She's like, my boyfriend's here. He's got a gun, and I'm hiding underneath the bed. I'm like, you need to call the police. She's like, they don't understand, and he knows the police. So I'm on the phone with one of our members, while she's hiding from her boyfriend. So I say all that to say that there are a lot of things that go on that we don't even understand. And domestic violence could be like, if I look down at a tissue, my cue is, if I look down at a tissue, or if I look down at the computer, you see this computer at the table? If I just look down like this, you know that you're gonna get torn up tonight. I'm gonna beat you, or I'm gonna beat the kids, or something like that. So that's how subtle domestic violence is. So I could go to you, or I could go to this person over here and ask for help. But while I'm talking to them, they say, oh, no, I'm gonna call John because I don't understand why you're here. John's a good guy. Remember, John's got personality, charm, character, and all this stuff, and John saved you. I'm gonna call John because this doesn't make any sense. So the person calls John, right? And when the person calls John, John comes to the house now, right? Because John's like, oh, Susie's just upset. I'll come save her. I'll protect her. John comes to the house. And while John's talking to you, while John's talking to you, he looks down at the tissue. So you know what's going to happen when you go home. You know what's going to happen because you reached out to a friend. So why would you reach out to the friend? Who can you trust in this situation? So that's why friends, neighbors, community, kids, everybody needs to understand the language. If somebody reached out 7 times, knowing that there's this threat and their life could be in jeopardy, 7 times they put their life at risk and they didn't get the support, so they went back. There's got to be universal communication.
Person can't create loneliness in public. They can't create isolation in public. I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
You said thank you?
Mm-hmm.
You gonna read my book?
I've read a lot of it already.